Just think of it as the rough draft of the podcast world. This is the Newbie Writers Podcast with your hosts Damien Bolt and Catherine Bramkamp. Hey, it's episode 215. Sorry, I was coughing during that.
Are you still sick? Because you had to take some time off.
I was like, I'll hit the mute button, it'll be good. And up she came. I normally sit here and bop along and think, well, what shall I say as my intro? Didn't think it would just be swallowing. Anyway.
Welcome to the Newbie Writers Podcast.
Yeah. Where our will to live is minimal. You're back from holiday in Barcelona.
Yes, Spain and Portugal. It was wonderful. Beautiful countries, both.
I like the fact that you send me an email. You're very cryptic with things, and now I'm very curious. So we can start the show with this. We do have a guest on, Sarah Kollat. Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
We'll get to you in a minute. I want to know. I want to know why in an email. I can't open it, but it says, "Hey, I'm back. I bought you something terrible that I don't think will get through customs."
No, I didn't buy you something terrible because I knew it wouldn't get through customs.
What was on your list that you're like, I don't think I'll get that through?
Yeah, well, and I thought of you immediately. Those would be the two things that really are wrong with this whole scenario. Mm-hmm. I was in a gift store in Madeira. They have a telephony funicular that goes up to the top of the mountain from the shore, and then of course dumps you into a gift store because anybody who knows what they're doing will do that. So we're walking around the gift store and they have Madeira wine and they've got Madeira cake and they have on a table stuffed with other Madeira-like objects are these. It's a little little statues that you can get that a little statue of the Pinta Maria, the Santa Maria, or a little boat, little wave, whatever. It was these two bananas. Mm-hmm. They're about about 5 inches tall each. Right. And one was on top of the other, and they were both partially peeled and were going at it.
Brilliant.
It was these little depictions of banana sex. And I thought, I didn't realize that's how they reproduce.
Yes.
But it was hilarious. I didn't even I thought I'm in a crowded gift store. I wanted to take a photo even, but sometimes they frown on you doing that. And I thought if your customs doesn't even like tiny mints in the shape of penises, they are not going to like bananas having sex.
But you see, at the end of the day, it really came down to you. You didn't want to buy it, did you? And then have to go through that embarrassment of posting that and then maybe getting
they were heavy, so I thought of the shipping costs, and then I thought I just don't want it to go through customs, have them rip this thing apart, and then have you have to explain why you were getting pornography sent through the U.S. or the Australian mail.
No, you see, it wouldn't bother me because the amount that I work at the airport where it go through, they'd probably hold it for me and I'd go, "Hey, fellas, check this out."
Check this out.
That's right. All I'm hearing is excuses how you didn't really want to do it.
I was with my mother. I didn't really want to buy a banana having sex. It just wasn't going to work out.
Because I did have a friend of mine who went to Turkey because that was sort of his heritage. He had family over there. And he sent me a little statue of a man with a gigantic wang.
Oh, yeah. Those are very, there's a lot of, in Japan, there's a lot of that too. Also in Greece. So that's where he probably got it in Turkey because they're fertility statues.
And that got through fine. So 2 rooting bananas would be fine.
No, I just didn't. I got you something more ordinary than that. And I'm not going to tell you because you can be totally shocked and surprised because you will never guess what I got you from Spain.
Is it a kumquat?
No, it's not a kumquat. I'm not bringing fruit into my country and then sending it to your country.
It's a good social experiment. Anyway, Sarah, have you ever bought anything really stupid while on holiday?
Oh gosh, yes. I bought a bunch of things thinking that they were originating from the country I was in, and due to language barriers, it turned out that it was just imported stuff.
Oh,
Nothing from the country of origin.
little marks made in China. Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
And I thought this was, I was in Costa Rica on my honeymoon, and I don't speak Spanish very well. And my husband, who had 4 years of Spanish in high school, does not speak Spanish either, apparently.
Right, yeah.
And
he
so
thinks he does, which is more dangerous.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. He doesn't even think he does. He fully admits that he has no proficiency with Spanish. And so I'm left with 4 years of German under my belt trying to learn Spanish on our honeymoon. So it was interesting. Yeah. So we ended up with a bunch of stuff that we thought would be very representative of Costa Rican culture. And it turned out that no, it was not. It was just imported stuff we probably could have bought in the States.
And what did you find? Because we were in Costa Rica a number of years ago, but loved it. Loved the country. My son's going.
Oh, yeah.
In July. What did you find? Because there's not a lot to buy that's, quote, Costa Rican. What did you find?
Well, some of the things that we purchased that turned out just to be imported were kind of not really tapestries, but kind of shawls and things like that that had really cool kind of prints on them. Yeah. We did find some stuff that was, right there in Costa Rica. A lot of things made out of coconut. So I got some really cool coconut earrings, and some jewelry that I still have, even a decade later or more than a decade later. So those have held up quite well. And I'm pretty confident those were not imported from another country to Costa Rica. But some of the other stuff we've let go. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Do you think buying stuff like that is going to fade out a little bit, considering you could probably buy it on the internet? If I was to, I don't know, look up on Google now 2 humping bananas, I'd probably be able to buy it and have it sent to me tomorrow.
You could go to the manufacturer. Well, I think that's, I'm sure, Sarah, you feel the same way. It's, that's why you want to look for more, quote, authentic things, because you want to find something that you can't just go to Etsy or go online to find. You want to be able to say, yeah, we got this only at this place. We saw this artisan working on it. And that's
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or something that you can attach a memory or an experience with. So even if you can purchase the product online, the purchasing experience, might be connected to a particular part of your visit. And that lends a bit more of, a more tangible meaning to it.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I just like the idea that if someone said to Catherine, have you got any fruit to declare? Would you have a tough decision?
Oh,
just the bananas, guys.
The issue is too, I was thinking, when you send it, you always have to write out those little customs forms. Right? I'm wondering, what would you put as, what does the package contain for that statue?
Novelty product.
Novelty product. Just go generic on it. There you go.
Yeah. That's all. When I buy stuff from eBay, like electronics things, it just says gift. Well, no, I paid for this.
Yeah, that's what my son used to do when he ordered. He would order cat litter through Amazon Prime just because he could, and it was free shipping. It was an interesting thing. And so he would always make it a gift, and he would then write a little gift on the gift tag. It'll say, write a little message. So he'd write a little message to the cat. It was very poetic every time.
Oh.
Just to make it, he says, someone has to read that at the Amazon factory or the Amazon warehouse fulfillment. He says, so I just thought I'd make it amusing. Okay.
Do you know what's also amusing is, if talking about airports and trips, is that everyone's on that heightened state of stress and anxiety. Then you see someone like me walking through with a box with like wires and stuff hanging out of it.
Oh God, that's right.
I did get a few weird looks last night. So what on earth? Just walking through. Excuse me, coming through. Security didn't care. Shove it through the thing. So, yeah, it's fine.
That's right. All you have to do is say, yeah, some guy gave this to me. I'm just going to take it down the length of the airport. It should be fine.
Yeah, I see my brain, because I don't know, I got a strong imagination, did think, how would it go if I just was running with it?
Right.
Just to see how people would react. There's a man with a box with all these cables hanging out of it, and he's running in the airport.
I have a feeling someone might tackle you in a vigilante approach, perhaps.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely in the States, because they're all like, yep, we can take care of this, and you would get totally attacked. Somebody.
Well, it's a bit like in the UK, they got in trouble. They're doing a terrorist training exercise, and the guy that was the terrorist took it a little bit too far. He started screaming out like Muslim sayings and stuff.
Oh
Like,
dear.
that's racist. You can't do that. He was in a public place screaming this stuff out to try and be, and he said, I was just trying to be more authentic.
You're trying to get into character.
Yeah.
Okay, then maybe we should put you in the psychiatric counseling.
Well, that's what Sarah's for. You do psychology, don't you?
I am. I'm a developmental psychologist, though, so I don't do any sort of psychotherapy. I'm more focused on, normative tracks of development and how to help our kids grow and be healthy.
Oh, how did you get into something like that?
Oh, well, okay. So back in high school, I was reading some of the, disillusioned literature that adolescents do, and like Brave New World from Aldous Huxley and things like that. And from there, it got me interested in, our inner workings as humanity. And, it just kind of stuck with me. And I ended up going to my undergraduate in psychology, and then I got my master's and my doctorate in developmental psych, mainly because, I was really interested in doing research. And then what I'm doing now is just full-time college lecturing. And it's a great gig. You get to share all of this phenomenal work about how to improve people's lives with very young, bright minds. And hopefully they go on to do incredible things with it.
Because I looked you up on the internet.
Oh, yes.
One thing that stood out was there's a lot of websites that said "Rate My Professor" came up.
Oh, geez, did you see those?
Yeah. Oh, you got good reviews. It's fine, but I thought that was a bit strange. I hadn't actually seen that before. I'm not a university person, but is that a thing? Oh, I'm going to set up a website where we can rate our professor. That has got to open you up to a lot of shit.
Oh, it does. One of the things that took me a while to get used to in my profession is just accepting the fact that no matter how proficient I was in my work and how much effort I put into it, in a class of 200 students or 200 people, there's always going to be somebody who just hates your guts, no matter how hard you're working, just because of personal preferences. And we do something at the end of each semester where students give anonymous reviews to faculty, and they can write comments about you. And I used to comb through them diligently when I was first teaching, and the ones that were fairly negative, which were always they're a smaller proportion of, in comparison to the more positive reviews of my courses. But those were the ones that would just stick in my head for
it's like reading the review if you have bad
weeks and weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
My field and I've been teaching for about a decade now. I've been able to kind of, I'm able to read through them, but not take it so personally anymore, and to focus more on the positive feedback I get. And especially the constructive feedback too. Sometimes students who just don't like you for ridiculous reasons. They don't like the way I wear my hair. They don't like my clothing. I mean, totally superficial stuff. But if a student gives me feedback and says like, this style of lecturing would, I would find it to be more helpful to my learning or whatever, I take those much more seriously than ones that are just personal attacks. But it's just part of being a teacher, I found.
Have you had any that really stood out, and can you pick them even if it's anonymous? Can you have someone give you a really crap review and you go, seriously, Kevin, I know it was you because you failed?
Well, at Penn State, we have very large courses typically up until, if you get into more special topics, you'll have smaller courses, which are maybe about 20 students. So in my really large lecture courses, which are about 200 students, there's really no way for me to identify who's doing what. In my smaller lecture courses, sometimes students will allude to a particular experience or what have you, and I might be able to, guess at who it was. But as far as the ones that I've received, the ones that stand out to me that have been, just kind of nasty are usually the ones that critique me about my appearance, which, again, is irrelevant to my capacity to educate you and my proficiency with the topic. And then one is, my husband and I, we adopted our 3 children, and I always kind of start my discussions in class because one of my main courses is about infant and child development. And I talk about, the day we got our children. That's kind of the I guess the phrasing you use in adoption communities is you talk about getting or receiving your kids because you don't give birth to them. And we even have this celebration called Gotcha Day. It's the day that you adopted your children and became a family. And so I talk about this throughout my class, and I talk about my family quite a bit. And when I was reading my student reviews at the end of the semester, one student wrote that the first day of class, she talked about how she bought her children, and I found it very offensive. And I've hated her ever since. And I thought, well, you don't listen very well, number one. So I said got with a very clear G. And plus, like, I even show pictures of our Gotcha Day celebrations and things. So that one stuck with me as just total ignorance on the student's part, and a lack of willingness to kind of, get to know me as a professor.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed, someone referenced you in a book, Handbook of Jealousy, Theory, Research, and Multidisciplinary Approaches. I haven't been drinking yet. And what I would like to know is, how is it possible, because we're about writing on this show, how can you write, this book is massive, like hundreds and hundreds of pages on just jealousy. Does someone sit around and go, yeah, we're going to write a whole paper on jealousy and it's going to be huge. I'm feeling jealous.
It's going to go big. It's going to be big.
But there's research. How do you research? It's going, do you get a whole group of people together that are couples and then say, hey, look, we're going to have that man hit on your wife and you're going to go and hit. Now, how are you feeling? Like, how does it work? How do you get that much out of it?
Oh, well, typically in these academic books, it ends up being a compendium of separate chapters that are featuring different researchers. And so jealousy is definitely a complex topic in understanding human relationships. And in my training as a developmental psychologist in graduate school, we focused a lot on friendship jealousy. So the idea of not being jealous of a romantic partner, but having a friend and having to accept that your friend has other friends that you may not share. And as a result, your friend is going to be sharing time with you and with their other friends. And so we did a lot of research looking at middle school students in particular, which is when friendship becomes more emotionally intimate and they're more longer lasting. And as a result, friendship jealousy tends to spike because you are more invested in your friends, and as a result are going to be more sensitive when that friend is also having to share time with other friendships that they've developed. And what we would typically do is we would do social network research, where it's called sociometry, where you asked students to list off their 3 closest friends. And we do this great visualization of it. We have this kind of connection. It looks like a big web, basically, where we're able to examine different social connections, who said they were friends with who didn't reciprocate and who did. And then we also do self-report data collection, just asking students about their experiences with friendship jealousy and whether they've observed it in other children, and whether some kids have reputations for being a jealous friend within the peer group. And that's a really interesting question as well, is which kids have a reputation for not being able to tolerate their friends having other friends, and how does that affect their social experiences?
And how does it? That's interesting. So how does that affect if you're, and is it, and is this escalated because of social media? Have you seen, or
definitely social media has changed the face of friendship for kids, and a lot of issue with academia is, as we're collecting data, it takes a while to process and get it published. And so we're always lagging behind. And the issue too is that just as soon as we start getting data in for Facebook, Facebook is becoming irrelevant. And now it's now Snapchat. Or it's Instagram. Exactly. So it's very, very hard to keep up with technology because it's accelerating in which particular medium youth are using to kind of utilize for their friendships. But I can tell you in a more general sense, kids who tend to have more of a jealous approach to friendships tend to struggle more in their quality of their friendships, because they tend to be perhaps a little bit more aggressive in a relational or social sense. And likewise, they tend to have issues of trust within that particular friendship as well. And one of the things, we are interested in our field is how do we encourage trust and how do we encourage quality friendship for children?
No idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to base it on, when I was at school, I had a few.
I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can even do that anymore. Where we look at a person who's like 15, let's say 15 years younger than we are. Let's get not a decade, but a little bit more than a decade, and say, well, when I was in school, we did blah 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 blah. I don't think we can say that because I think we have, somebody in the 6th grade is having a completely different experience than what I had.
I know.
We can't really. I don't think we can fall back on what we knew to be true.
Yeah, it is strange because I've had a trainee who's obviously about that age gap, and to see him with the way he interacts with people and the text messages and getting moody about things, and I'm like, seriously, I'll answer that call if you want. I can make it go away very quickly.
Well, I would say I think there's definitely a universality to the experience of being an adolescent as far as certain physical processes are concerned. Okay. All of us are experiencing changes in the way we think about the world. We're having advances in this frontal lobe portion of our brain. So we're able to think more complexly. We're able to develop better perspective taking and just emotion regulation skills in general. So that's universal across generation to generation. Okay, I just think the medium for the way kids are expressing it is entirely different. Like you're totally right, Catherine. The way that you express friendship and support to a friend is so different today than it was, when we were kids. My children, who are all teens at this point, do not talk on the phone with their friends. They talk on GChat or they talk through social media. Texting is the new way of communication. And when I would talk about, being on the phone for hours with my friends when I was growing up, that's totally obsolete now as a way of maintaining intimacy in a friendship.
Oh, but how do you still get like a, I don't know, 1,000-page document out of it that you're going to sell for $50?
Well, Damien, the thing about academia is we definitely know how to talk about our material at length.
Yes.
And I would say, and keeping in mind too that's an edited book, I believe, and so there's a lot of other experts weighing in on their particular niche with this very large idea of jealousy in human relationships. And just as human relationships are entirely complex, these different facets that we can mine into, like jealousy, for example, has several different facets depending on the relationship you're examining that might exhibit jealousy, whether it's romantic, whether it's familial, whether it's sibling, whether it's friendship. And so all of that complexity allows us to really dig deep into the topic. And plus, academics just love talking about their work too, so that might be part of it.
I'm just curious because I struggle to write a 50, 60,000 word story, and yet I can hear on the news that some politician's written a 1,100 page report on the fiscal outlook of a potato, and I'm thinking, how is that possible? And how boring must that be? There must be lots of very, very there's in there. Just to space it out. I don't know. There's got to be a trick. Is that something that's taught? That's through, when you're studying, going through uni, do they teach you how to fluff it?
Well, I wouldn't say to fluff it. In scientific writing, you definitely encourage for concision. So you're supposed to be very clear with your writing. But there's also a certain amount of redundancy, so the standard setup for a research article, for example, that might be published is you have an introduction where you review previous work, you have your methodology where you talk about the data you collected, you have your statistical analysis, and then you have your discussion. And built into all of those 4 sections is repetition of certain key concepts or hypotheses or what you're trying to achieve within your particular work. And the whole idea is that you're trying to make your contribution as clear as possible. So you might repeat yourself in these subsequent sections to make sure the reader is getting that information clearly. And that might just be part of it, is that there's a certain redundancy built into that style of writing.
So then how does that flow into, with your writing outside of that sort of thing? It's a bit like
Oh
when people write
gosh, fiction
technically.
writing is so much freer and lovely, and it's such a
And warm and
relief
fuzzy.
from from scientific writing. I mean, scientific writing is meant to be dry, and it's meant to present the information as clearly as possible. It's not meant to evoke emotion. It's not meant to entertain. And so when you start writing fiction, it's such a freedom that you have as a writer. And I think that's partly why in my career, trying to write fiction was such a release after, research articles and grant proposals and, the grading of student papers and the editing of student papers. So I would argue that it's an entirely different style, and I'm very thankful that it is so different.
But does it sneak in? Is there sometimes a crossover? Do you pass a bit, say, to your husband and say, "Can you just read this?" And he'll go, "Really? It's a bit dry."
Well, I have to say, I think in my own writing, I came into my graduate work with a minor in English. And so I had a very different style of writing. And even though I acquired this scientific style, especially with the concision, I think in my own writing as a novelist, the concision definitely helps me, trying to say things, and not being too flowery about it. I enjoy that style of writing in fiction in particular. But the redundancy, I do try to be very conscious to avoid. My focus is more so on trying to exhibit the traits of my characters and also to keep the plot driving along too.
Have you ever considered about, with this, writing the scientific sort of papers, throwing something really loose in there and see if anyone picks up on it?
Oh, people pick up on it. I tell you what, and it's because, when you're going to try and publish an article, it has to go through a peer-reviewed process. And it's usually 3 different reviewers who are blind to who you are. And oh my gosh, they comb through everything. So it's very, very intense scrutiny to get anything published in a scientific journal. So you might, try to throw something fun in or something a little bit quirky or flippant, and they're not going to tolerate it. That's been my experience. The best you might be able to do is to have a slightly snazzy title for your article, and even that might get nixed in the end.
So, but wouldn't it be funny though to get that sort of feedback? I know when we had our editor come back to us and say, I would like to make some changes, blah, blah. They're fairly sort of stock standard textbook things. But just to see that email going, "Dear Sarah, starting a chapter off with 'What up, bro?' is unacceptable." just once, I'd love to see that.
Is not following with APA
Yeah.
guidelines. Yeah, I can just see it.
And to know that someone had to write that to you as well. I don't know.
Oh gosh.
Well,
yeah,
I was going to say when I did my when I turned in my master's thesis, I walked it in and I handed it to the first reviewer, that at the in the university offices, and I'll never forget this. The guy takes my work and he said, and he sort of looks at me and says, "And what is this about?" kind of thing. I said, I write about American women humorists, and it's a compendium of humorous articles. And his whole face lit up, and he said, "Really?"
Yeah. I thought that was going to go the other way. Like, "My name's Martin, and I don't have many friends." Yeah,
Exactly. But I have a red stapler. No, he was so happy to see me. I work with some clients, and I've helped them with their dissertations, and I think that's probably coming from the opposite end. So I have 2 degrees in English, coming from the other side of it and seeing what they have to write. The system for a PhD thesis, dissertation is that damn repetitiveness. And when I'm going through it, I have to remember that they're supposed to do this because I'm reading it saying, "Really, I got this."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cut it.
I don't need to do this again and again and again. But of course they do, because that's the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that was really interesting. It is. It's just a very different way of writing. So good for you for shifting over and doing the fiction. So you have a book coming out, right? So tell us about that. Your novel.
I do. So it's called A Flash of Red. It's coming out through Pandamoon Publishing, which is an independent publisher based in Austin, Texas. And it's coming out in the winter of 2016. So A Flash of Red is considered to be a literary thriller or a psychological thriller. And it focuses on three main characters who each in their own lives are coping with this disconnect from reality, or trying to understand how they're disconnecting from reality. So one main character, her name's Anna, and she's married to another main character named Sean, and their marriage is hitting a lot of difficulty at this point in their union. Anna also has a history of mental illness through her mother. And as their marriage dissolves, Anna starts to see harbingers that potentially that mental illness from her mother's side is creeping into her own life. But at the same time, it's unclear whether it's a disintegration of her concept of reality, or whether it's her husband trying to kind of accelerate the deterioration of their marriage. Her husband, Sean, as well, is coping a lot with issues related to internet addiction and seeking out intimacy and sexual pleasure online as really a replacement for the intimacy he's lost with his wife. And then the third character, his name's Bard, and he's a student of Anna's at the university. And he similarly has some issues with mental illness in his family. And he starts to develop a certain obsessive need to rescue Anna from what he sees as a destructive marriage. And so these three characters play off of each other. And what eventually happens in their relationships with each other is something that could be, resilient or could be destructive. And that's where the novel trundles towards as it approaches its end.
So where did this story come from?
Okay. So it came from two different spots. I live in a tiny university town, and so I get to walk to work every day. And as I'm walking to work, I'm thinking a lot about my writing and my stories. And one of the symbolic images in the book is a cardinal, which is very common here in Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful red bird and kind of emblematic. And I see a ton of these beautiful birds on my walk to work. And I started to think about, how this might be symbolic of something in somebody's life. And then along with that, for my some of my course development, I was examining basically pornography exposure in children and how that might be affecting children's development. I shouldn't say necessarily children, although certainly kids are accidentally being exposed to pornography online because of the lack of filters on the home computer. But a lot of adolescents are seeking it out as a way of educating themselves about sexuality. And I've been reading a lot of research about how that might be problematic for ultimately their own sexually intimate relationships, and how it might hinder their capacity to connect to another person physically and emotionally. And it was those two things that started to wind together and ultimately create this story for me.
Oh, right. So you didn't have an experience where you had a student who was, hitting
Stalking.
on you. Yeah, stalking you.
No, I've never had anything like that. They will comment on my physical appearance and misinterpret what I say, but no stalking. Thank goodness.
No stalking so far.
Yes.
Let me
Billy
ask you
left me
this.
an apple again today. We are adults.
Scary. How, in your research then on children educating themselves through the internet, through essentially pornography, which I think, is it a case of just escalating the propensity for young people to pilfer their parents' Playboys stuffed under the bed for their education? Is it just more of that, or is there a different what am I thinking, dimension to it?
I think it's an entirely different dimension because of, number one, just the sheer amount of exposure that a child or an adolescent can have online to pornography. There's such an extensive variety that's available for free. And if parents don't have protections on their computer, kids can access it readily. And that's very different from a static magazine, maybe a few copies. And plus, it's video images of intimate acts. And I say intimate kind of tongue in cheek because really pornography does not display any sort of real human connection or intimacy. It's very mechanical in the way it presents it. And that's been one of the biggest issues arising from the research, or one of the biggest outcomes, is that adolescents are, if they're only learning about sex through pornography, they're getting a very skewed view of what it means to connect to a person physically. There's no foreplay, there's no tenderness, there's often not really even any kissing. And they start to acquire this idea of like, this is what it means to engage in sexual intimacy. It's this very mechanical approach. And we can't ignore the fact too that in pornography, often women are, they're portrayed as being, you know, kind of subservient. They're being dominated by the men, either explicitly or implicitly. There's a lot of what someone might consider to be minor violence, like gagging and things like that, that are becoming more and more popular. And
or aggression. I was thinking,
yes, exactly.
the aggression feature of it would
exactly
be challenging. Yeah.
And so this is all, if this is what young people are internalizing as far as what sexuality is, if they're not having any other experiences or education, when they go to have their first sexually intimate encounter, it's going to be shaped by these expectations. And I think the great fear we have in our field is that if we don't start to try and tap down this idea of pornography teaching our kids what sex is, they're going to be missing out on some very important and wonderful aspects of sexual intimacy.
So do you have
The
to fill
intimacy
out?
being one of it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Do you have to fill out special forms and submit them to your IT department?
So you can get by all the filters.
Well, I have to admit, so for this is not research I'm doing in my own work. Because I teach full time, my main focus is on trying to access, you know, research that's been published by my colleagues, and trying to take that and present it to my students. And especially in college life, access to internet pornography and just the use of it is it's ubiquitous almost when I talk to my students. And the majority of my students are women. We have very few men in a lot of our courses just because of some of the topics. It seems, you know, we don't get a lot of men in our courses, unfortunately. And the women will even tell me, you know, in their own experiences, especially with their male friends, you know, they'll go to a male friend's apartment and the pornography is just playing on a large screen, just kind of as background to a social event. So there's this desensitization to a very intimate experience.
Yeah, well, I can't say I've ever experienced that.
Well, it just points to how college life, how relationships and views on sexuality seem to be shifting because of accessibility to pornography. It's changed a great deal.
See, because when I looked you up on Google, I literally just typed your name, and I had
because we do deep research here. Can you tell?
Hey, if you're on Wikipedia, I'd be all over that. No,
Right.
What I've never seen this before come up on Google. So you've clearly won the internets today. But
wonderful.
At the bottom of the first page, it says, in response to a complaint that we received under the US Digital Millennium Copyright Act, we've removed one result from this page.
I have no idea what that is.
What did you do?
I thought that was great. It's like, wow, what kind of keywords did you trigger?
Exactly. What does Sarah Kollat trigger to have something removed?
I have no idea.
Unless
this is all new to me. Yeah.
We can read the complaint. Let's find out what the complaint is. There is a link. I don't know.
No, this is, I have no clue. This is intriguing. I'm going to have to Google myself now and see what comes up. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's some database, some Lumen database.
Well, if you're not getting complaints, then you're not doing it right. So, you know, that's...
There you go. There you go.
I
feel like that's a research database. I don't know. I'm going to have to check it out now that we're done. I'm very curious about this.
It's cool. As if you don't Google your own name. Everyone does it.
I just Google myself to make sure I'm still, you know, out there and alive. That's my way of checking.
That's your benchmark. There you go.
It's my benchmark. Whoa, it's still there. Good. We're still real.
See, yes.
So I have a question about just academic publications, because sometimes I know we're students. We have to buy books, and they're massive books, and it costs $1 bazillion. And you're like, really?
Mhm.
And it's because there's such a big team behind it who need to be compensated for, $4.95 doesn't go very far. So, what is the process for your academic books? Because these aren't, as Damien pointed out, it's not like we're writing bestsellers with an academic
Mm-mm.
book. What is the system like? If, for instance, the book that you were in, 5 on the,
Mhm.
the fifth, either the literary magazine or the actual book. Did you have any insights on how that publication process is, and is it different than quote traditional, which of course goes all over the map right now too?
Oh, okay, so you're asking about academic textbooks and how those go
Yeah,
about being published?
It's
Yeah.
the longest question
Well,
on the planet.
Hey,
Hey.
hey! I am still in the wrong time zone, so I get it fast.
Yes.
Well, I could tell you, I've never written an academic textbook before, but I have had some opportunities to do review work for them. So from what I
Okay.
understand, and this is really an outsider's perspective, publishers have often starred textbook authors, and they might be academics, or they're literally, their job might be to be writing textbooks. They have a master's or a PhD in a field, and they write textbooks for a living. And what they do then is they send these books out to academics and ask for us to just read over, make sure everything's up to date, and give feedback on the chapter before the book is actually published. And usually those reviewers would be compensated somehow too. So that's partly where the cost might get built in as well. I can tell you that as a professor, as a lecturer, one of our concerns is just making sure our students can access their textbooks. They are incredibly expensive for a variety of reasons. Many of them I'm not really privy to because I'm not part of that particular publishing experience. But I know it's frustrating for a lot of students because a textbook might be $120, $150, and that's going to be cost prohibitive to a lot of our students. So it's definitely a concern many academics have, is we want to have really excellent resources for our students, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're not putting them up where they're not going to be able to afford the book to begin with.
So on that then, you come from that sort of teaching sort of realm. Book, what's the term? I just lost it. The book that you've written, though, A Flash of Red, when you had that finished, what did you do then? Where did you turn to get this published, to push it out there?
Well, first off, anytime you write a book, you get your beta readers to read it and give you feedback and all that stuff. And then when you feel like it's good to go, you take a deep breath and you start to query it. So you send out emails to agents, and for some more independent publishers, you send out emails directly to them.
So
and it was basically through that process that I got connected with my publisher, with Pandamoon Publishing. And they're taking a fairly unique approach to publishing, in the sense that they're focused a lot on creating a community of authors where we meet weekly. We do trainings regarding the publishing process, regarding marketing for our books, and also just building friendships with our fellow authors at Pandamoon. And it's been an incredible experience for me just to be building these connections with other great authors, and also to be able to access my publisher at any time and be able to ask questions. It's just a very unique experience from what I understand compared to traditional publishing.
So, but how do you...
No, go ahead.
How do you find those people to contact? Did you just do like a Google search, or were people recommended?
I took the Damien approach and I Googled people.
Yeah. So what search did you put in? Did you put just "I want to be published" and see what came up?
So there's one resource online called Writer's Digest, and they will feature new agents who are searching to fill up their list of clients. But also Twitter is a great resource for any writer. It's a big and very positive writing community on Twitter. And one of the things you can do is use a hashtag for manuscript wish lists, which is hashtag MSWL. And from there, you can search for different agents who are posting about what they're looking for to add clientele to their particular list or agency. And that was also really helpful too, just to know where my novel might be better received.
So did you have it edited and go through all of that process before you stepped out and went, okay, it's ready, here, someone take it?
I did. I ended up, I had my beta readers take a look at it. And then I hired a professional editor. Her name's Nicole Tone, and she's also a published author herself. And she went through and did a full-fledged editing of it. And once that was through and it was all shiny and ready to go out, I sent it out and queried it. And again, that's how I got connected to Pandamoon. So having a professional editor take a look at it before you start to query it, I found to be really invaluable. It was a great, great resource to improve the manuscript.
Was there anything, though, that came back after the editing and you're like, no way, I'm not changing that? Or...
I was lucky, there was nothing that came out as far as the plotting was concerned or character development. A lot of Nicole's feedback was related to more minor points that really helped to deepen the character experiences or just to make sure that the plot was moving along at a good pace. So I was lucky that as she went through it, there wasn't anything too glaring that she felt like was going to inhibit the book.
So with your beta readers, did you just send it out to family? Or
Well, of course I had my mom read it. Doesn't every author have their parents as a beta reader, perhaps? And I have a couple of colleagues who are in the English profession, a couple of my colleagues who are psychologists, and just a couple of friends too.
That would be funny though if you sent them off to psychologist friends and then they just ring you and go, "Hey, everything all right?"
Yeah, right. That's right.
Well, this is what we have to remember. It's
I'm
fiction.
feeling like projecting.
Oh, I know. I think any author deals with that. If they're writing about something that's fairly scandalous, is people look at them like, so what's really going on in your head there?
Where did that come from?
Come into my office.
It's just creativity, folks.
That must actually, on that though, psychologists and therapists and all that sort of profession, that must be hard for them if they need to go and seek help from a psychologist or a therapist, wouldn't it? Be a lot of self-diagnosis going on.
Guessing.
Oh, no. Well, the thing is, if you're going to be doing counseling, and again, I'm not a clinical psychologist or a trained counselor. My work's more from the research perspective. But my colleagues who are trained counselors or clinical psychologists, one of the main mantras in that field is that you need to make sure you have a good counselor that you're seeing as well. You need to keep yourself physically and mentally healthy in order to be a good healer as well.
I just think of that movie Analyze This, where he's like, "Oh, I'm grieving. It's a process," because he's a counselor, so he just repeats everything he says to his clients.
And we never pay attention. I mean, I do that as a writing coach. It's like, I will tell my people to do this, this, and this, and then I sit in front of my manuscript. It's like, now what good advice did I just give them? Because I wasn't listening.
Yeah,
I know. Physician, heal thyself, right?
Yeah.
But you can get caught up in it. Like, yeah, if I beta read like Catherine stuff, some of it, some comments I'll send back and go, "Hey, you remember how we talked about doing this? You didn't do that." So, oh, thanks. But yeah,
exactly.
I don't know.
You have your beta reading for me right this minute. I know you're already finished. You just haven't sent it to me.
What? I'm lost. What beta reading?
You're reading Future Sky.
Am I?
Yeah.
When?
It's due today.
Damn.
I'll send it to you again.
I'm perplexed. I don't think I've seen that come through.
I'll send it to you again. Because I know you don't want to miss an opportunity to tear it apart and we can have a whole show on it.
Yes, no, my emails. Because
We'll have to look.
You're going to have to extend that out because that's going to be fun. Got to get a couple more shows out of it.
I'm well aware of that. So when the book comes out, A Flash of Red, where can people find it and where can they find you?
Oh, great. Well, for my book, it's going to be coming out on Amazon. They can also go to pandamoonpublishing.com. It's spelled just the way that you would say it, Pandamoon Publishing. And we have a great little logo for our publisher that's very, very cute. As far as finding me, they can go onto my Twitter account. It's SK Stevens Write is my Twitter handle. And they can also go to my website where I post a regular blog pretty much every week towards the beginning of the week about writing, about psychology, about feminism, about all sorts of great stuff. And that's shkstories@wordpress.com.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, thanks for being on. We've got some things to do. You talk about reviews and things like that at the end of each year. Catherine's determined to have probably, we're up to episode 215, so at least 200 angry reviews because...
Well, should we say something incendiary now so we get really angry reviews for this one?
It's more so that we read out a tortured sentence, so it's an error by one of her students usually. So if they end up listening, sucked in.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, should we do a word of the week?
Do a word of the week.
All right. Word of the week doesn't mean what they used to.
Yeah, this is from words that don't mean what they used to. So I found a site that had, things that we have words that we use now just without even thinking about it, but they used to have a different meaning. So that's the setup. So you can read the word.
Right. So fail.
As in
epic fail. Fail was a thing you avoided by doing homework, studying, and participating in class. Now it's to make an embarrassing or humorous mistake, be in a humiliating situation. Fail. Right. Yes, the word of this week in this household is the boy has been calling people a doofhead.
A doofhead. That's better than douchebag, isn't it?
Yeah,
that is better. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You're a doofhead because there's a YouTuber who says it because he doesn't want to say doofus, so he says doofhead.
Doofhead.
There you go, doofhead. Put it in.
I like it when they invent words. I think that's fun.
Yes, his favorite catchphrase at the moment is "Seriously, Dad."
That's going on in my house too right now with my teenagers. I get a lot of seriously. And the new one they really like is salty. So if they're feeling kind of irritable, they'll say they're feeling salty.
Oh, that's interesting.
Took me a while to get on there. I thought they were just thirsty for a while.
Do you know? See,
they've been sweating too much and it's evaporating.
This is where I get the seriously stuff come from, because if my boy said, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit salty," I would actually come out with a pepper shaker and crack it on him and go, "What are you doing?" Well, salt and pepper. I'm tenderizing it. I'm a bad parent like that. But my boy turns 7 soon, so he shouldn't be saying seriously.
But they do. I think they pick up sarcasm a little early too.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
When he starts talking like that, I start talking back to him like that. So the other day he was like, "Oh, seriously, Dad, whatever." I turned around and said, "Yeah, totes, bro," and just walked off. What? You're an idiot. Prompts. I don't know, Sarah.
Joys of parenthood.
Do you ever use a prompt to practice writing to get into it?
Well, it's interesting you would ask me that. So our middle daughter has been doing a lot of artwork lately, just with a computer program, and it's this abstract kind of colorful stuff. And she and I were talking about how that would be a great thing for writing prompts. She's been enjoying writing stories during her summer break as well. And I guess that would be more so the prompt that I might look to, is something visual that I could then try and create a story out of.
Well, I think in a roundabout way, sort of being out and about life is a bit of a prompt. We all watch people.
It's one big visual emotional prompt.
Yeah. You look at the cardinal, a flash of red. Yeah.
There you go.
See, when you said that, when you said, "Oh, I walk to work and I see a cardinal," I actually thought it was like some priest in a red outfit walking past.
I know,
Hey, Sarah.
I know. And see here, I don't know the history of the naming, whether it was the priestly cardinal that came first and then the bird second, or vice versa. I have a feeling it was probably the priestly cardinal, you know, because we are a colony over here, or once were, and
Yeah.
the priestly cardinals were around much earlier than I think our cardinals had been discovered by the West.
It is a nice image, though, isn't it? You sort of walk into work and on an autumn day, and there's the cardinal shuffling along, high five him. How's the Pope?
There you
Bam.
go.
You know, break a hip.
I love that. I love that you can. How fun to be able to walk to work. That's wonderful.
It is. It's such a treat, you know, and anytime we travel somewhere else where it's not as pedestrian friendly, it always gets a bit frustrating, you know, when you have to just drive everywhere.
Mm.
Yeah. Welcome to the Bay Area. Yes.
Don't talk to me.
Drive everywhere.
I drive 200 kilometers a day to work. Anyway,
Yes, you do.
yes, anyway. The joys of being a service tech for an entire state. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Big state.
So the prompt. What if you married your high school sweetheart? Or less likely, what if you did?
I did marry my high school sweetheart.
There you go. See, I thought some people actually married their high school sweetheart. So let's say that you did.
Okay.
Let's pretend that you married the person you were dating when you were in high school.
Okay.
What would have happened? Where would you be living? I personally would be living in Cleveland if I had married my high school sweetheart. So I am super grateful to my current spouse. So,
Catherine, I grew up just south of Cleveland in Youngstown, Ohio. So I kind of concur. Cleveland's a pretty cool town, but all around it is just Rust Belt city, man.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm sure the actual downtown. So that was the prompt. Is like sometimes you especially when you go to a high school reunion, is like, what would have happened? What would have happened if you had seriously hooked up with that person?
I'd probably be in a different state.
Yeah, see, I'd be in a different state as well. State of anxiety.
Yeah.
Sports.
Pretty much.
You've not been good. But then, as obviously in your case, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law have been happily married for years, and they met in high school. So,
yeah, I'm trying to think. I know. I kind of had like 2 boyfriends, and I married the second one. So I'm trying to think about if I was the first one. Gosh, I don't know. I don't think I'm even friends with him on Facebook. So I don't know where the heck he is right now. Now I'm going to have to Google him too.
Yeah,
see where he's at.
We have all sorts of Google material.
I know. I have so much homework to do after this podcast now. My gosh.
You're welcome. I expect a full 1,000,000-page report by the end of tomorrow.
I will.
Yeah.
There will be much redundancy in my report to you, Damien. Don't worry. I will do full-on academic bravado for you.
So we're going to cite everything.
Yes. Make sure you get the
all
date.
The websites where you find everything.
Yep. Now, let's do a tortured sentence.
Okay.
Next time, don't put the wrong emphasis on the right syllable. Tortured sentences. So that was a recording from one of your yearly reviews, Sarah.
Yeah, I was thinking so. It sounds very familiar to me.
No, it just gets horrifying every time I hear it. Anyway.
I love that bit. Okay, so this is from my class.
In later years, Maria Montessori, physician, and Elaine Morgan, anthropologist, concluded the complete opposite of Broca's conclusion using his philosophy. Right. What?
Yeah, that's what I said. What?
And how did you fix that for them? Did you just put a line through it and went?
Yeah, I think I just put a line through it.
Said redo.
Yeah, sometimes they can be helped, and sometimes it's like, I think I know where you were going with this, but I'm not entirely sure. So let's unpack this and start over. Yeah, this would have to be a do-over, and maybe this one sentence needs to be about 3. is how I would encourage the rewrite.
Because, you both obviously mark papers and that sort of thing. Is there ever
Yeah. I know, I just got finished doing it this morning, so.
Is there ever a tendency, do you want to be like passive aggressive and just like put a little line of like, really?
Okay, I can tell you, Damien, okay, if my students don't do APA citation properly, which mind you is very basic, and I give them a handout and we go over it in class and blah, 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 blah. So the only reason that they're not doing it right is just pure laziness. And so what will happen is I'll correct it nicely for the first error and then for the second error. And then slowly but surely my comments get in more capital letters and there's more exclamation points. Same with if students don't proofread. Like if you don't proofread your work and you're in college, like, come on, man. So I'll say, please proofread. And then I will say proofread. And I will say, why didn't you proofread? And this is unacceptable. You need to, so it's just kind of this sequential anger that they can read through my comments on their paper.
Escalation as they get to the end of the page.
It is. It escalates definitely into, an eruption of annoyance by the end, which is where the grading rubric is. So it's
and
much
then they give
to
you a
their
bad review. Right?
You
just
know,
didn't understand my technique.
Yeah. So luckily those are fewer and far between, those types of papers. But when you hit one of them, oh gosh, there's such a big time sink, and grading a terrible paper takes so much time compared to grading a great paper.
Is that why you keep a hit flask in the drawer of your desk?
Oh, it's not in the drawer. It's just on top, as necessary.
I saw an image on the net. You can't believe things you see on the net, but it was quite a funny concept of someone had submitted a paper, but they forgot to put the date up near the top or something like that. And so the lecturer had written in red pen little line and put date ? And they put at the bottom, no, sorry, I'm taken.
Oh dear.
And then and there was like another page that had the same, because they didn't have the date anywhere. It was like date, and they're like, really? I don't think that's appropriate. You're my teacher.
Oh my gosh.
That's cute.
Oh my God. I would do that though. That would be very tempting to see how far it got me. Probably get you hauled up in front of the person.
I don't mind it when they're pithy and try to do interesting things. Because I agree with you, Sarah. Sometimes I do everything but hand them the right way to do their papers, and so I get a final. In fact, this time around, I got a final paper back. I had given them copious notes on their draft, and all you have to do is listen to me, and I will give you a better grade. I mean, it's that easy. So this morning I get the paper back, and I look at the paper, and then I look at my notes, and I only got like 2 or 3 sentences into it. And it's like, they didn't do anything I told them to.
Oh, that's the most frustrating. Oh yeah, that really gets my ire up there.
You're not listening to me.
And it's just a waste of your time. Like, I don't know about you, Catherine, but a lot of times I'm grading on the weekends or the evenings when I could be with my family. I could be enjoying life. And for them not to take time to respond to it is just, it's like a slap in the face. It's just rude.
Yeah. And, I have enough, I'm with you. So I have enough students where they are just, they just get all wound around the axle about it. And they're really intense. Like, okay, I'm going to do everything that you say. Then I give them a good grade because they're listening. It's the ones that are just blowing you off. We're like, okay, really? No.
Have you ever had someone just copy and paste something from the net and they've accidentally left like the closed bracket or the dot something from where they forgot to?
Definitely, that's happened. I've had a student who took something from another source and just went through using the thesaurus and changed every single word. So it was totally incomprehensible. But they thought that was paraphrasing. Oh, it was awful.
I sometimes think that that plagiarism is just an inadequate consciousness about how to cite. So I think there's a piece there. And then the other piece is that they don't quite know what they're doing. I don't think it's as malicious as some professors would like to pretend it is. I think they're just like not into it. And then they get super stressed. And that's when you get we did a whole show on purchase papers where we looked at papers that you could actually purchase. I tell my students, I said, really, it's not worth the money. They're terrible. I read them.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
It would be funny if someone did purchase a paper and it happened to be they plagiarized. Say you had done a book, a paper on the topic, and they just plagiarized that, and so you basically got your own work submitted to you as the professor.
That'd be funny.
That would be funny.
That would be kind of funny.
What would your comment be at the top? Thanks.
That would be really well. Actually, the question would be, it's like, so when you Googled this paper, was I first?
Am I your first? Anyway.
Was I at the top?
Jeez. Anyway.
Awesome. You still get an F, but awesome.
Thanks for quoting me. Far out.
Thanks for quoting me back to me. I feel validated, but damn, you're just not going to get a good grade in this class.
Anyway,
It's over.
so that'll do it for this week. Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much
Sarah.
for having me.
Who have we got on next week, Catherine?
We have John Draper. We're going to have him back. We're going to talk about losing my religion. He wrote a religious book and changed his entire worldview. And we had some technical difficulties with him, and we are having him back now. So hopefully the technical difficulties have disappeared.
Well, hopefully he's fixed it, and
Yes.
hopefully like
That's what we're
Ari.
going to find out. It's going to be exciting. That'll be the discovery part of the show.
Yes. All right. Well, until next week, we'll see you then.
Your book starts here on the Newbie Writers Podcast.